Okay.
Oh, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday, and welcome to episode 2 of Michael and Luca's Excellent Adventure, where today we will be discussing what the greatest sporting event is that we have ever watched, and then when we wrap up the show, we will be discussing which movies we like and why we like them. So to start off, one of the greatest sporting events that I've ever viewed was in 2022 MLB season when Aaron Judge broke former Yankee Roger Maris's home run record by hitting 62 home runs in a season for the American League. He did it against the Texas Rangers in September of that year, and I remember being in my grandfather's house with my grandfather and my dad. We were in the kitchen and we were watching the game on TV, and uh, my dad was recording with his phone, and there was just like so much like joy and excitement around it. Just seeing Judge like break a record that had been held for like such a long time, and it was such like a big deal. As far as like just like Yankee history is concerned. Um, Michael, what's like the greatest sporting event that you've watched?
The greatest sporting event I've ever watched on television. I will never, ever forget it. And I remember it so well to this day. I was in fourth grade. I was 10 years old. It was on April 4th, 2016. It was the 2016 NCAA Men's Basketball National Championship between the Villanova Wildcats and the North Carolina Tar Heels. The 2016 Villanova men's basketball team was my favorite championship team ever out of a college basketball team. They were led by senior guard Ryan Arcidiacono, junior forward Chris Jenkins, junior forward Josh Hart, freshman guard Jalen Brunson, who is now on the New York Knicks, and senior center Daniel Oshefu. The Villanova Wildcats going into that season were the legit team, led by head coach Jay Wright. They were the legit team. And I said to myself at the beginning of this season, this is their year. They're going to do something special this season, and they are going to win the national championship. Villanova in 2016, they did not win the Big East Tournament Championship. They lost in the Big East Tournament Championship, but they went on an incredible run during March Madness. Ryan Arcidiacono, the Villanova senior guard, really carried their team throughout the whole season, and he really carried their team throughout March Madness. He really was a leader. He really, really stepped up. And if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have gone as far. He was the man during their season that year. He was the man. He was an incredible leader. And I'll never forget it. The 2016 NCAA March Madness first round game between the Villanova Wildcats and UNC Asheville. I was in fourth grade, and it was during a school day. And my father took me out of school to go to the game. I was at school, and my dad took me out of school, and my dad, I got the call to say your dad's here to pick you up, and I had no idea I was getting picked up. I was like, why am I getting picked up? I walk out of the school building, and my dad looks at me and he's like, we're going to the March Madness basketball game at the Barclays Center. Me and my dad and my brother went to the game, went to the Barclays Center, and Villanova beat UNC Asheville 86-56. Villanova dominated. Arcidiacono had 14 points, and I'll never forget it. The best play of that game was when senior guard Ryan Arcidiacono alley hooped the ball to Josh Hart. And Josh Hart had a dunk, and the I was sitting behind the hoop watching it, and Arcidiacono threw it up, and Hart dunked it. It was awesome, and Villanova dominated that game. And throughout the entire March Madness tournament, Jay Wright, the Villanova head coach, he really emphasized defensive consistency. And really throughout the whole tournament, they really did a great job of the defensive consistency. The second round game when Villanova played Iowa at the Barclays Center 2 days later. My dad watched that game on TV, and I watched it with him. And Villanova was up like 52-29 at halftime, or like 54-29 at halftime. And dad said, this is the best game they've played all season. And they won that game 87-68. The Sweet 16, and they dominated against Miami. Chris Jenkins, the junior guard, had 21 points. And in the Elite Eight, Villanova upset Kansas. Kansas, going into that game, I wouldn't say they were the better team, but they were favored to win that game. Villanova was the 2 seed during the March Madness, and Villanova ended up beating Kansas 64-59. Then they went to the Final Four in Houston, and they played in the Final Four game and the national championship game where the Houston Texans play. And Villanova played Oklahoma in the Final Four. And Villanova started off the season like 8-0. And in this back end, because the Final Four was played in April, the the Villanova's first loss of the season came against Oklahoma the previous December, a couple of months before. That was their first loss of the season. They lost at Oklahoma 78-55. And Villanova lost that game. And a lot of reporters and a lot of people said that they're going to meet another time this season. That's not the last time they're going to meet, and they're going to go to the Final Four, or they're going to meet somewhere in a big game. And Villanova, it was like night and day compared to how they played back in December to how they played against Oklahoma in the Final Four. Villanova went on a 25-0 run in the second half. Villanova absolutely dominated and controlled the game against Oklahoma. They beat them 95-51. Ryan Arcidiacono had 15 points in the beginning of the game. He had 2 big threes. Josh Hart, the junior guard, he was the player of the game that game. He had 23 points. He could not miss. He drove to the hole many times. They stopped him on defense, and the Oklahoma guard, Buddy Hield, he was the best player on Oklahoma that season, and he really dominated throughout the whole tournament. And I believe the first time that Villanova played Oklahoma that season, Buddy Hield had like 20-something points, 30-something points. Villanova held Buddy Hield to 9 points in the entire game. Buddy Hield had 7 points in the first half. Villanova held them to 2 points in the second half. And it was a completely different Villanova team. They got 10 times better. Guys off the bench played extremely well. Everything was clicking, and they just dominated. They stuck to the game plan that head coach Jay Wright said. They never backed down, and they just played as a team. And the saying goes, defense wins championships. Defensively, that game, they were unbelievable. They stopped Oklahoma, and they just wanted it more. And Villanova earned a spot in the national championship game. The best sporting event I've ever watched in my life on television. Monday, April 4th, 2016. The Villanova Wildcats played the North Carolina Tar Heels. North Carolina was the 1 seed, and Villanova was the 2 seed. And me and my whole family, my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad, we watched it in the den of my house. And Villanova was the 2 seed. And I said to myself going into this game, like after they beat Oklahoma in the Final Four, and I said to myself all day Sunday and all day Monday while I was at school, this is the game. I'm going to be devastated if Villanova doesn't win this game. I've watched Arcidiacono play and be a leader and carry Villanova for 4 years. Jay Wright is an incredible coach. This is the game that will mean something, and this is the most important game. This is the game. Out of all the games I've watched in college basketball, this is the game. This is the game that I really want. And I'm going to be crushed and devastated if Villanova doesn't win this. Let's let them please make sure they win this. Like it was the game. It was like the Super Bowl for them. And it was at Houston. And again, I would say who was favored. Both teams were excellent and they had great leaders. Probably more people thought North Carolina was going to win, but it was a completely even match. And I said to myself before going into this game, if they can play defense the way they did against Oklahoma in the Final Four, nobody can beat Villanova because they were absolutely dominant. In the national championship game, Ryan Arcidiacono, the senior guard, the leader for the whole season, he had their first 7 of Villanova scored 14 points in the first few minutes of the game. Arcidiacono had their first 7 of their first 14 points. So he had half their points in the beginning. In the beginning, the first few minutes, he had a quick 7 points, and he had 7 of their first 14 points. But then he didn't score the rest of the half. And Villanova had a tough time defending North Carolina's threes in the first half. Sophomore guard Justin Jackson on North Carolina hit three threes in the first half. Senior guard on North Carolina, Marcus Page, hit a three in the first half. And the sophomore guard, Joel Berry, he hit, I think he was 4 for 4 in the first half, and he had like 15 points in the first half. Villanova had a hard time defending the three. Head coach Jay Wright was getting pissed, but Jay Wright never lost faith in his players. And he said, you can't leave North Carolina alone. If you leave them alone, they're going to hit the three. If you're all over them, like we were on Saturday against Oklahoma, we will win. And they struggled in the first half, but they never gave up. Villanova was down. And going into that game, North Carolina, that was the worst shooting team in North Carolina basketball history. But Jim Nance, the announcer, said, you wouldn't know that tonight. And Villanova had a tough time defending the three, and but they were down 39-34 at halftime, and it was 39-32 with like 10 seconds to go, and Villanova sophomore guard Phil Booth, who was the player of the game that game, he was unbelievable that night. He went into the lane to go for a layup, and the North Carolina player stole the ball from him, and then they pushed it up to Justin Jackson, and then Justin Jackson missed the layup because Josh Hart ran back, and Josh Hart played with so much passion and so much heart. He went up and he blocked Justin Jackson's shot, and then Archon Diacono got the rebound. Then he passed it up to Phil Booth, and then he hit the jumper to make it 39-34. And Phil Booth is from Maryland, and he was a sophomore at the time when they won the championship in 2016. Phil Booth came off the bench during the season, and he was an average player, and he averaged like 10 points, 8 points a game. That night, he was the man that night. He was unreal that night, and he really kept them in the game. At the beginning of the second half, North Carolina dominated. They got a lot of easy points. It was 41-34, and then I think it was 41-37, and then 43-37. And North Carolina dominated the first few minutes, but then Chris Jenkins made a couple of shots. Hart made a couple of shots, and then within the last 10 minutes, Archon Diacono really stepped up. He hit a jumper, and then at like the 10-minute mark, at the 10-minute mark, Villanova started to come back. They were down a little bit, but then they came back. And then really the last 5 minutes was one of the most unbelievable 5 minutes I've ever seen in a basketball game. It was 70-67 with a minute to go. And the senior guard, Marcus Page, was unbelievable that night. He had 4 points in the first half, and he really stepped up in the second half, and he ended the game with 21 points. So it was 70-69 with a minute to go. And Villanova head coach Jay Wright told his team, we don't need a three. We don't need to get nervous on offense. Take our time. Use the clock. We don't need a three right now. So it was 70-69. Villanova goes down. They foul him, and I believe Phil Booth goes to the free throw line to make it 72-69. North Carolina comes down. Marcus Page goes into the lane, and he misses the layup, but Page gets his own rebound, and he puts it up to make it 72-71. So now it's like 13 seconds. Meanwhile, I'm up in my seat. I'm getting so excited. I'm watching the game. I'm like, just let the game end. I'm all into Villanova because my father went to Villanova. We always watch the games. It was unbelievable. So now it's 72-71, and Villanova goes down the court, and Josh Hart hits 2 free throws to make it 74-71. So now this was the most unbelievable ending. 13.5 seconds left. Joel Berry, and Villanova had a hard time guarding Berry in the first half. But in the second half, they only held him to like 1-3. They really, at halftime, Jay Wright did a great job of making corrections and adjustments on how to guard him. So 13.5 seconds left. I'm sitting on the couch in my den. Joel Berry brings the ball up. The whole point was to give it to Marcus Page. Um, the whole point was to give it to Marcus Page. And the whole point was to give it to Page because he was on fire. But we're gonna come back. We're gonna take a little break now, but I'm gonna come back and tell you my favorite ending of the best sporting event I've ever watched on TV. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Untouchable, unstoppable.
This is WIUR Sports Radio.
Hi, I'm Robbie Basil, president of WIUR Radio, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Have you ever wanted to call the biggest games, the biggest moments for the biggest names for Iona Athletics? Then the newly founded WIUR Sports Radio is the place to be. Launched in January of 2025, our goal is to try and get broadcasters here at Iona an opportunity to learn, succeed, and get a chance to be on air. From getting to call the big moments at the hack,
Dinkins trying to go to the rack. Denied. Yafet Mundi with
to seeing the crack of the bat at City Park.
the line drive into left field, around third, and it kicks away. The Gales are going to win it in 10.
We make those moments happen on our brand new WIUR Sports Radio platform on Mixer. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me via email or to the rest of my e-board to join the club. We are WIUR Sports Radio, the new home of Iona Athletics. Now, back to the show on WIUR, Iona University Radio.
Okay, welcome back to Michael and Luca's excellent podcast adventure part 2. I was just continuing the best ending of the best sporting event I've ever watched on television. So as I resume, North Carolina guard Joel Berry brings the ball up and passes it over, and they had to give it to the senior guard Marcus Page, and Page had the ball, and Berry the second passes it over to Marcus Page, and the whole idea for the North Carolina offense was to pass it over to Marcus Page because he was on fire over the last few minutes. He was dominating and scoring all North Carolina's points within the last few minutes. So Joel Berry passes the ball to Page. The senior forward, Daniel Shefu, tries to steal the pass, but he falls on the floor. Page receives the pass. He jumps up and then jumps up again. Arcidiacono comes up and gets his hand up, but Page goes in front of him and hits a circus shot. It was one of the best shots in the history of basketball. It was unbelievable. And as soon as Marcus Page took the shot, I said to myself, that's going in. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So now it's 74-74 with 4.7 seconds left. Everybody in the gym is saying to themselves, now Villanova has the ball. Arcidiacono is going to take this shot. But we were saying to ourselves, who knows what's going to happen? It was a very long time out, and actually it was a little bit slippery on the floor. So Daniel Shefu got a mop, and he actually mopped up the floor to make sure none of the Villanova players tripped. The best couple of seconds in a sporting event I've ever watched. Chris Jenkins, the Villanova junior, inbounded the ball to the Villanova leader, Ryan Arcidiacono. Arcidiacono, because it's tied at 74, 4.7 seconds left. Villanova needs one push to try to win the national championship. Chris Jenkins, and again, I'm standing in front of the TV. Me and my brother are standing in front of the TV. My sister was actually asleep, and we were all in the den. It was unbelievable. And I said to myself, please, God, this is the game. Arcidiacono passes it up to Chris Jenkins, inbounds it to Arcidiacono. Arcidiacono has it. He dribbles it. He goes into the middle of the court. He gives it up to Jenkins at like the 3-point line, passes it up to Jenkins. Arcidiacono has the assist. He gives it up to Chris Jenkins. Chris Jenkins sets his feet. They get it off in time. He sets his feet. He has arc on the shot, and it goes in. It swishes in. I'll never forget the reaction when the ball went in. I'm jumping up and down. I actually went over and woke my sister up. My brother was crying because he was so happy. It was unbelievable. The whole Villanova bench runs over and jumps on top of Chris Jenkins. And all Chris Jenkins did when he hit the buzzer beater, when he hit it, he was like this. That's all he did. They all jumped on him. It was their first national championship win since 1985 when Villanova beat Patrick Ewing and Georgetown when Villanova played the perfect game. And the head coach of the Villanova Wildcats in the 1985 season when they won the national championship was Rolly Massimino. Rolly Massimino during the game was sitting right behind the Villanova bench. And a couple of months after Villanova won that championship game at the buzzer, Rolly Massimino said, even though I wasn't the coach of Villanova during that game, that was one of the most special games I've ever been a part of. And I felt like I was actually coaching, and it was unbelievable. And Villanova head coach Jay Wright, actually, when Chris Jenkins hit the buzzer beater, he actually said to himself, he thought there was more time left on the clock. He felt like North Carolina was going to get the ball back for one more possession. He thought there was more time on the clock. He didn't get to enjoy the moment. But I'll never forget the reaction, and that to this day will go down as one of the clutchest shots in the history of basketball. 4.7 seconds. That was very clutch. And Chris Jenkins, the Villanova got the player who hit the buzzer beater, actually works at Villanova now. And when he hit the buzzer beater, Jim Nantz said after the game, and this is a true fact, Chris Jenkins was taught to shoot the basketball by his mother. His mother taught him how to shoot the basketball, and that she would not allow him to hit shots outside the paint until he was in the 8th grade. And Jenkins never gave up. Villanova never gave up, and that was definitely by far the best sporting event I've ever watched on TV. But Luca, were there any other Yankee or Giants games that you remember watching on TV that were memorable for you?
Yes, another Yankee game that I remember watching was actually last season, so 2024, when they were playing the Cleveland Guardians in the American League Championship Series, and former Yankee Juan Soto wound up hitting a 3-run home run, which ultimately sent the Yankees to the World Series for the first time in 15 years, where they would eventually go on to play the Los Angeles Dodgers. And that was like a great home run, not only for like Soto personally, but just gave the team so much like energy and excitement. And it's like, you're going back to like you have a chance to win a championship for the first time since 2009. However, unfortunately, that didn't work out. But regardless, what a great moment for the Yankees.
Now, do you remember where you were when you watched that game?
That one, no, I don't remember as well.
Now, the New York Yankees, how do you think they're going to be next season?
Next season, I think they're gonna be pretty solid again. They just gotta have a good off season, and they need to like make good acquisitions that are gonna like help out the team.
Now, um, now we're going to move over to movies for the last minute. There are certain movies that we always watch and that we enjoy watching. Why did you enjoy the movie Midnight Run? What was so special about that movie that you liked?
About that movie, I liked definitely had great acting. Like Robert De Niro was great in that movie, and um, the scenes in that movie were also great. Like the plane scene where like the man is like afraid of flying.
Yes, and Robert De Niro said, "Come fly with me, come fly away." That's a movie I could watch over and over again, and Midnight Run is a classic, and I look forward to watching more movies with you. Thank you very much for joining us today. It was a pleasure talking with you, Luca, and we look forward to talking with you again. Thank you.
Yes, we will see you next Monday.